The end of this video will reveal the shocking math secret everyone should know. But to get to that, I start at Gobekli Tepe, 11,000 years ago. Gobekli Tepe has to be the archaeological site which most captures the imagination. Crackpots love to speculate about the culture, religion, and possible connection to the lizard people of Atlantis. I want to stay on solid ground in this video. No lizard aliens. There are two dated levels at the site. Roughly round buildings from around 11,000 years ago, called PPNA for Pre-Pottery Neolithic A, and roughly rectangular buildings from some 2,000 years later, called PPNB. First, the PPNA structures. The PPNA structures have finely worked stone pillars with many straight lines and flat surfaces, but no accurate parallel lines and right angles. In another video, I have shown how accurate lines and flat surfaces can be made by measuring with just a single piece of stretched string. The PPNA structures also have accurate arcs of circles. Circles so accurate that use of a stake and string compass is almost a given. A stretched string for straight lines and flats, a stake and string for circular arcs, and a rock tied to a string for vertical walls. Sums up text for the PPNA. Again, no right angles. In the PPNB areas, there are rough rectangles with right angles. Right angles are key to making equal spaces to minimize conflict between families. Possibly the right angles became necessary with an increase in population density. Here's how I think the right angles were laid out. When two families agreed on a point to start, along a stretched rope or straight wall, the shaman would draw a circle and stake the crossing points. Each family would have one of two equal ropes to hook on the stakes. The two equal ropes touch together at the right angle, which was then marked with a stake and another rope. This would guarantee that each family got an equal share of the space. So a right angle could be created using only the technology of making a circle with a rope and stake, something known by this time for thousands of years. This is all the speculation I'll allow myself about Gobekli Tepe. Time to move on to the Sumerians, living about 4,000 years later. Here is an aerial view of the Sumerian city of Ur. The city has closely packed, accurate rectangles, long straight lines at right angles, and squares. While other methods, including the method I propose for Gobekli Tepe, would be known, I think most of the layout work at Ur would be done with a cross, something like the Roman groma. Sighting along the arms of a cross is easier than doing everything with ropes. Here is how a long, accurate right angle line can be created with even a very poor cross. I think this illustrates the use of the ancient groma as a right angle finding instrument better than almost anything. This is not a right angle, very pointedly so. You can see we've missed a right angle by a great deal, but we can still get a right angle. So we're sighting along this line here, then we sight along this line, either over there or over here, and we get that as our trial right angle. Now If we spin this like that, we are now sighting this way and this way, giving us another trial right angle. Now, the Groma's work is done. What we would have to do is measure off this, march between the two, or measure with ropes. We have 1.25 inches, so that would be a 1/2 inch and 1/8 right there. And now you can see maybe you can see that we ended up with a right angle to this point out here. There's where the pinhole went. And there you have your right angle. So what we're doing is we're taking the average between this reading and this reading with our Groma, which is the one in the middle. So this is how I feel they were able to use the Groma, no matter how accurate it was itself, to find an accurate right angle. This use of the geometrical average between two sightings would be a natural action, giving near-modern accuracy with a crude tool. I believe many ancient cultures understood the value of the average of two measurements, not only for finding right angles, but also for finding level. I've covered finding level with averages in another video. So in addition to the averages, the Sumerians had techniques for making straight lines, circles, rectangles, and squares. Time for the Romans. First, a look at Roman bridges. For building bridges, Romans used the Groma, or cross, in finding the distance across a river without trigonometry. The Roman surveyor would pick a distinctive spot, call it A, across the river. The Groma would be set up at a point B to sight the spot A and indicate a line along the river on the Roman side. Roman soldiers had very regular steps, so marching along the river on that line, they could set up two stakes, C and D, at equal distances. The Groma would be moved to the second stake, D, and a march away from the river would be stopped when the stake C lined up with the point A. This gave the number of steps along the river. The cross or Groma didn't need accurate angles, just rigidity so the angle didn't change. It could have worked with lashed together tree branches. Next, laying out cities and camps. Romans oriented cities and camps to true north-south and east-west lines. Finding the north-south line was done in a simple way, using techniques similar to those of Gobekli Tepe 9,000 years before. A pole was placed in the ground and plumbed up accurately vertical. In the morning, as the sun moved along, 2 or 3 pole shadows were staked at the tip of the shadow. From each stake, a circular arc was drawn with the pole as center. In the afternoon, as each pole shadow touched an arc, a new point was staked, forming pairs of stakes on the same arc. String lines between the pairs point accurately east and west. A line connecting the pole and the east-west midpoints lays accurately north and south. This is also another way to get accurate right angles. Lastly, building forms for domes and arches. As you may suspect, the circular forms for domes and arches were laid out on the ground with a rope and stake compass. The whole of the Roman civilization was underpinned by a few simple techniques. While the Roman elites had sophisticated geometry, the actual work of the empire was done with ropes, rocks, and crossed sticks, as had been done for thousands of years. No evidence of lizard people anywhere. So here's my shocking assertion. Please feel free to tell me why it's stupid. 9,000 years ago, there were straight lines, circles, and rectangles. Slightly later, there were also squares and averages. Today, almost all of the useful math can be derived from straight lines, circles, rectangles, squares, and averages. The same 5 things for 7,000 years. Just 5 simple things to learn in depth, instead of dozens of things to be confused about. I hope you're not too shocked. Thanks.